our show where today we have the pleasure of bringing back a returning guest who has become more than just a collaborator, he's a friend. Alexander Herbert, renowned for his insightful research on horror films in the Soviet Union, punk culture, is once again with us. Over the years, Alex and I have grown close, and he even visited me here in Mexico. Now we're excited to be working together on a book project. Today, we're diving into Alex's latest venture, a significant leap into documentary filmmaking. After the pandemic restrictions were lifted a few years ago, Alex traveled back to Tbilisi, Georgia to document a unique and poignant migration story. His focus is on the young Russian punks who fled their homeland to avoid participating in the war with Ukraine. Instead of creating a simple narrative about these punks as fish out of water in a new land, Alex explores the broader implications of this migration on the Georgian economy and society. His documentary examines how the influx of Russians is influencing the local scene and economy in Tbilisi. How do Georgians feel about this wave of new residents? And is there a sense of gentrification occurring within their communities? Moreover, can punk music, with its rebellious spirit and message of unity, serve as a bridge between these disparate groups? Today, I am thrilled to have back on the show the creator of this documentary and my good friend. Please welcome Alexander Herbert.
Back.
Guess who's back? Hold
Got me
up.
back. I need a theme song. At this point, I need a theme song.
That would be funny if people started requesting theme music. I have triggers on this thing on the board. I could do that.
Mean music? No, not mean music.
We could do theme music for you.
Maybe Fat
so
Bottom Girls or something.
Sadly, I can't play any copyrighted music.
Damn.
The last night for
Fat
just
Bottom Girls, you make the rocking world.
dude,
go
don't even sing it,
round.
man. We're gonna get taken down. There's
All
this
right.
woman
My
playing the
voice sucks.
accordion. We were watching a video of this very attractive woman cooking, and she was playing the accordion, and that got the whole video demonetized for like
Damn.
15 seconds. It doesn't take much with YouTube. They're vicious.
Ridiculous.
They're vicious. It's ridiculous. So I would have to create you some intro music. I can make some East Coast hardcore.
I'm more of the hair metal type. You gotta.
Oh, don't tempt me with a good time.
You gotta bring me out with the hair metal. Not that I don't like hardcore. It's just that when thinking of my own introduction, it would.
Look at this. Look at this guitar, Alex. This is modeled after Van Halen's Van Halen 1 guitar.
Yeah.
Right? You think I can't doodle a diddle?
Sick.
But in all seriousness, you finally made a movie, and you actually went to Georgia to make this, and you were there for 3 months?
No, I was in Georgia the summer of 2023. I was only there for a month. I worked very quickly. In fact, so quickly that I didn't really have time to do anything leisurely. It was so kind of the whole idea for it, the whole planning for it was so quick and harebrained to a certain extent that I had people inviting me different places and telling me to go to different city, go to the beach in Batumi in the far, and I couldn't do it. And the thing is that I left my schedule up to the people that I was supposed to interview. So I was talking at any given time to 5 different people. When can you meet? Nobody could give me a hard day because God forbid punks have any kind of like schedule. So it was kind of more of like, oh, when I can see you, I'll hit you up. And I was like, all right, fine. So let's say I had Thursday, Friday, Saturday was all clear, right? And at that point, it's like, oh man, I could take the train to Batumi. It's a 3-hour train ride. I can go on the beach. I can leave on Thursday, get back on Saturday. And I shit you not, Wednesday afternoon, somebody would hit me up and be like, yo, Friday, I could do Friday. And it's like, shit, there goes the entire plan. But that's why I was there. And so every time that, I had the possibility of having a plan for relaxation, it was foiled by, the the point of being there, which was to to document, to talk to people. Um, and so it got done. You know, I think the characters that are in the film were great. I did interview more people than are in the film, but uh,
Editing.
what's that?
I said editing.
But editing, you know, a matter of what people say, how repetitive it is. We get into some of the feedback I got when I showed it throughout Europe, but one of them was a guy raised his hand and said, some people make the point multiple times. Is there a need to have the point reiterated so many times? And I said, well, if you paid more attention, I didn't say it like this, but if you paid more attention, then you would realize that the people that are making the same points are all of different backgrounds. A
Yes.
Georgian is making the point, a Russian is making the point, and somebody in between is making the point. And so the purpose of doing that is so that you could see this is not just one group that's making this argument, right? It's something that everybody is recognizing across the groups that I'm talking about.
And what is the argument? What's the through line, in your opinion?
The through line for this is kind of how you introduced it. On the one hand, punk rock, as I know from my own experience growing up in punk rock, and as I know from researching on the Russian punk book, is a offers a lot of potential in terms of bringing people together, forming solidarity bonds amongst people, and it's transnational, right? It has the power of doing that across national borders, even borders that are otherwise tense with each other, such as Russia and Georgia, or even Russia and Ukraine. There are Ukrainian anarchists that are fighting in Ukraine, that there are Russian punks that support what they're doing. That would be another thing that's worth documenting, but much more dangerous. Um, that's one point. The other point is that, yes, while punk has this solidarity potential, right? It has this movement potential. It's also ignorant in certain ways to the effects that this is happening. And so one part of the film, you get Georgian punk rockers who are saying, "No, this is good. I'm glad that Russians are coming. It is, of course, changing the city." One person says there's more vegan restaurants around.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah.
His marker of gentrification, and he's saying more people come to our shows. We have more places to play. But on the other hand, you get an interview with another Georgian who says the cost of living in Tbilisi is out of control. Working class Georgians can no longer afford to live in Tbilisi. They're moving out of the city. It's all middle class people who can afford that, or Russians who are coming with much more money, or foreigners in general. And so the punk movement has this possible for solidarity. They all see it. They all recognize it. They're all trying to work within it. But it's also ignorant in some ways. It's got maybe I don't think it's
Well,
perfect.
when you say, are they ignorant to this idea of gentrification, or are they just? Do you think they're ignorant to what though? The idea of what happens. One thing I found interesting is that when you have a small scene, like for example, I live in Rosarito. You've been here.
Mhm.
I've run into people here and there that listen to different kinds of music, but there's a scene in Tijuana. If I wanted to play metal, there's places for me to play. There's places for me to buy proper instruments.
Mhm.
Um, I can buy an acoustic guitar and a tuba down here, but I'm not going to be able to get EMG pickups. I'm not going to be able to get any kind of decent amplification because most stuff is street music and what quickly can I put into a car and go hop out and play uh, a restaurant. Um, so if I came down here and a bunch of my friends from the warehouse, let's say, the music scene here would change drastically.
Mhm.
Um, and maybe not necessarily for the better economically for the musicians that already exist here. And one of the things I thought was interesting was the practice facility. We were talking to the guy at the practice studio because you need a place to make noise. And if you're used to having certain amenities, you're probably not going to want to make noise. What was you talking about? Like they used old, you said like the warehouses people used were kind of on the outskirts of town. They weren't necessarily in the city center.
In Georgia, in
In
Tbilisi.
Georgia. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's so, you got these people coming in that are used to a certain thing that actually have the money to spend for it, which is a nice thing to have. But what then happens to the people that are already there? How much harder is it for them to afford the
Right.
practice facility?
And I don't think that it's a purposeful ignorance. It's more of like a blissful ignorance.
Okay.
It's the fact that um, the influx of new capital, and I don't want to pretend that it's just Russian capital because it's not. It's a lot of Westerners are there too, Americans,
British or US?
British, Americans,
Is that
Canadians,
why?
etc.
So another thing that happens in your movie, and I do want to show a little bit of the movie in the champagne room, but another thing I thought was interesting, and for a little more context, Alex, when he came back to Mexico, we were working on this. I think I don't have it on this computer sadly, but I have the trailer somewhere, the original trailer that we worked on um, for it. But there's signs in English for those shows, like no homophobia, no racism, no
Mhm.
sexism, like all this stuff is in English.
Mhm.
Um, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, the secret place, the kind of focal point of the entire movie to a certain extent, is it's a very international place. On any given night, you can go there and run into Americans and Canadians, Belarusians, Germans, etc. But the main language is English, not just I think in Georgia, but in global punk more generally. Even when you go to Germany or or Poland, a lot of the stuff um, is in English. Part of the reason is that the Anglo world is the origin of punk, and that's kind of what everybody is aspiring to. But also, it's just a language of communication. Um, the question: where do these Russian punks get money from? A lot of Russian and Ukrainian hiding in Southeast Asia. Singapore stopped giving them visa, and many of them have problems getting funds for living. Most of them, a lot of them have. Well, it's different for everyone. Some people they still have their job in Russia, but they can work remotely. So they're
Wow.
still getting paid a Russian salary, which is substantially more than what a Georgian gets paid, and that's why they have more money. Another way that they do it, and one of the interviewees talked about this, is he just took personal loans out from his friends and family to open the recording studio that he started in Tbilisi. Um, some people migrated without any money. Some people took money from more nefarious sources and they're still paying it back. There's a lot of stuff in certain interviews that people didn't want to talk about or they just didn't want in the movie.
Really? So loan sharks are still a thing.
Of course, yeah, in all the post-Soviet world, pretty much. But in Georgia, yeah, I mean, one of the funny things about secret places when you go there sometimes you see the big buff Georgian guys that sit outside of it and
Mhm.
they're clearly not involved in punk at all. They're just their eyes are wandering and looking at all the weirdos around, but they
Mhm.
like it because they see that it's successful. They see that there's a lot of people going bringing business and that they're ostensibly the landlords. They're the ones that have to get paid, and so as long as they're getting paid they're happy.